So for those who join, please go to the meeting chat and then scan the QR code. Or if you don't want, then wait for the break for 5 minutes. Then you can scan. I will share the screen again on the QR code on the big screen for you to scan. Okay. So now I'm going to commence the lecture proper. So we continue from where we left. Yep. So Tuesday we stop at so-called the various type of procurement. Okay, we have your traditional, and now we go on to the non-traditional. Non-traditional, there are a few categories. First of all is the design and build. And the design and build, there are 3 subcategories. And then the next one, that is management system. So similarly, management system, there are 2 types. There are So there are 2 types. Number 1 is the management contracting. And number 2, the construction management. So please identify the difference between each of them. Okay. So management system is a general one, general discussion. Management system, whether is contracting, management contracting or construction management, they didn't differentiate. Okay, they just tell you it's a management system. What is the basic principle behind this? Is management system. Then the further detail is broken up into type 1 and type 2. Okay, so this model is characterized by the separation of the management system and the operational or technical system. So there is a clear demarcation on the management aspect of it. And also on the implementation. So this is the implementation. This one is the management. There are 2 teams. There are 2 teams. And one important point for you to remember, the parties that is carrying out the management would never carry out the construction. This is how we call it the management system. Even though the management party is a contractor. So be careful. Contractor can be recruited by the owner to manage the project. So the contractor only do the management aspect. And then the other contractor or subcontractor or specialist contractor will do the implementation with the project. So this is the key difference between your traditional, non-traditional characteristic with this so-called management system. So the operational, that is design and construct, is undertaken by one organization, that means the first team. Okay, and then the management contractor. So sometimes they name the management contractor as construction manager. So please don't get confused. Although the name is construction manager, this construction manager helps to manage the project only. Didn't do any construction. So this term is quite confusing here, so be careful. So the construction manager or management contractor, that is from the contracting background, will help implement. So this is the management system. Okay. So generally how the system works. So the employer will get hold of a management organization. It can be a contractor, it can be consultants, to help coordinate and carry out this part of the work. So this is the management part. That is the first part of how the employer will get this management team in. Okay. Then after that, they will engage the contractor to carry out the implementation. So how to carry out the implementation? We'll have two types. So this is type 1, management contracting, we call it MC. So management contracting, you can see here, this is management contracting. See here? So the client will engage the so-called construction management team, or it can be a contractor, it can be consultants, or sometimes it's a manufacturing team. As long as they are skillful enough to be able to manage the project, then you are the management team. So the client has a direct contract with the management team. That is management contracting. And then the management team will have a direct contract with all the other contractor, specialist contractor to implement the project. Remember, this management team never carry out any construction activity. Okay. Then the next one is construction management. So under construction management, you see now, the clients have a direct contract with this specialist, contractor, or supplier, whatever. The clients have a direct contract. And then the construction or management team have another direct contract with the client. So see the difference. Under the management contracting, this team have a direct contract with the client, and this team have a direct contract with the contractor who implement the project. And under this construction management, the client will have a direct contract with this management team, and the client will have a direct contract with the implementation team. So that is the difference between MC and CM. Next, we go to another category. We call it the BOOT type of family, build, operate, transfer type. So there are a lot of so-called variables from this, but basically it evolved from the turnkey. So under the turnkey, get to know the turnkey first and then see how they evolve. Turnkey is fundamentally is a design and build approach, or design and construct. So turnkey is actually basically design and build, but specialized call it turnkey is because there are certain variations in the implementation. So under design and build, the design and build contractor didn't finance the project, but under the turnkey contractor financed the project until completion. So this is called turnkey. That is big difference between design and build. So this is how it is done. Is finance the project until completion and hand over the whole project to the client, and then from that only you get the payment. So this is called turnkey. So you must make until operational. Okay. There's another one from the turnkey. It evolved to this so-called BOOT type of family: build, own, operate, transfer. Now, B from build, O is own, another one is operate, T is representing transfer. It is also design and build, but have slight variation. So you need to differentiate between turnkey and the BOT or BOOT and or BOO type of arrangement, but fundamentally they are design and build. So under this BOOT, a project owner PO will have to come up with a brief, extensive brief document. That means the specification. Once they come out with the specification, and then they pass forward to this design and build contractor to do other things already, to refine the design and then finally come up with the figure. must satisfy the so-called the performance requirement of the project. So this is how the BOOT is slightly different from the design and build and slightly different from the turnkey. Turnkey, there is financing. But this one is not only design and build. You have to operate it, own it for a certain time, and operate it for a certain time. And then after that, transfer the project back to the owner. See the difference? Turnkey, design and build contractor, finance everything. And then after that, upon full completion, pass it back to the owner and get the money. Under the BOOT type, the design and build contractor will design as per the performance specification of the client, then own that project for a number of years. Usually you call that the concession period. Okay, so owning this part, they call it the concession period. Okay, usually in Malaysian environment, it can range from 33 years to 53 years and so on. Okay. I think you may want to ask why 3 years at the back there. The reason is quite simple. The 3 years is actually allocated is for the construction phase. Hopefully they can build the project and complete it in 3 years so that they got a concession to collect money to operate it for the next 30 years. That's why you can see this very unique type of a year at the back there. Okay. If the construction period, let's say to take around 4 years, then it will be 34 years because during the construction phase, you cannot collect money. You cannot own and collect money. Okay. So this is why you can see at the back there, the years are very odd. After that, you own it, then you operate, maintain it, and then during concession period, you collect the money from the people who use your so-called facilities. So this is called BOOT system. So the BOT family just now as described is actually can be subdivided into BOT. See the difference? Here, you don't operate. Build, own, then after that, transfer. So this is another category. It's a subfamily of the BOOT grouping. Okay. So this is the another subcategory, BOO. So basically, they are derivative of the BOOT way of implementing the things. So how are they differ? You have to go through the small details here. So these are the points here that will give you the differentiation between BOOT, BOT, and BOO system. Okay, I won't go to the details. So these are part and parcel of the BOT system. So generally, you can see the BOT system is summarized by these points here. Okay. So the BOT approach poses a considerable challenge in assuring that the KPI definition of service provision represent true value for money. It means that the end product to the owner should be having good value and not the things that will affect the whole life cycle building costs to be imbalanced. Okay? This is the key item. So the next point to remember is the sophistication of the project owner knowledge is important because if the project owner doesn't have the good knowledge to come up with the performance specification, it's impossible to come up with the brief. So this BOT system is not applicable. Okay. So you need to have that knowledge, then only it is possible. If the owner or the client want to implement BOT without knowledge of this requirement, then please use other system. Your traditional one, ask the consultant to help, rather than you come up with your specification for them. So this is the second requirement. The project owner must be knowledgeable. The third one, high level expertise from everyone that is involved. So the owner must be knowledgeable, contractor, designer must be knowledgeable. So come up with this is the most difficult part for the project owner. So on top of that, as you know, there are so many professionals involved. To get them to collaborate is another big problem. So the design and build team really need to have a very powerful or knowledgeable project manager to implement this type of project. If not, it will lead to a lot of confusion and dispute at the project site. Okay, so this is type 1 of the non-traditional, which I cover. Under this will be your, first of them is the design and build. You got 3 subcategories, and then you have the BOOT family with its sub variants. That is your second grouping. And then now we go to your non-traditional type 2. So under this one, you have your partnering. So from here, you come to know to this very, what should I say? So this is a very highly dependent on the trust. This is more towards trust between the contracting parties. So this is area on trust. If this is missing, then please don't go for partnering. So generally partnering in basic concept, it is a principle or philosophy, a principle. Under this principle, it is making use of the trust among the parties to implement the project successfully. Okay, so generally partnering is actually not a procurement choice by itself. Okay, it is a concept behind it, and from that on, the procurement choice that is your traditional or your other non-traditional arrangement will take over. So this partnering is the trust is on top of the procurement approach. This is what we call partnering. It can be applied to other partnering procurement. This is what I'm trying to say. This trust principle or philosophy is on top of other procurement approach. It can be traditional, can be non-traditional. More often than not, this one is applicable to non-traditional approach, like what we mentioned, design and build, or the BOT system or turnkey system, whatever the other subspecies. It is not so applicable to traditional. Do you know why I'm saying that? Partnering philosophy is not so applicable to traditional procurement. Do you know why? This is the key reason. Because partnering is depending on trust between the contracting parties. In traditional approach, the basic concept is, what shall I say, is under the adversarial system. That means is under the adversarial system. Traditional approach equals to the basic concept is adversarial. Adversarial means hostile. Okay. So if it is hostile, how can you be trust? There can never be trust. So please be careful. In traditional approach, to apply partnering is something quite difficult. Okay. So just to let you know, on this, just don't simply say, oh, partnering, you can go and applicable to your traditional approach. Then already conceptual clash already. Okay. It's a mismatch. It's oil and water. Partnering concept and the adversarial system cannot mix, because adversarial means one person that is more knowledgeable or more skillful in manipulating or understanding the contract will be the winner. But for partnering, everybody try to be the winner. It's a win-win situation or lose-lose situation. Adversarial is one win, one lose system. So it's definitely not so practical. So, okay, then we can continue. Under this so-called partnering, so what are the subspecies of this we can look into? We have to look into type 1, that is the strategic. Okay, and then project. So basically, the overall approach is this. For project, it could be a one-off. Strategic is more towards long-term. That means the employer have more projects in the pipeline. Then the strategic partnering approach will be applicable. For one-off, it will be project partnering. Okay. So usually apply so then you have the chance to continually improve. Okay. So this is what it is going to be. From the things that is gained from this mutual trust and benefits, so you can continue improve, then to be applicable to the next project. So this is the strategic partnering approach. So there could be gain in the technical, there could be gain in the administrative aspect of it, and ultimately a harmonious team. That is your strategic type of partnering approach. Then the project partnering, more often than not, it provide within the project basis. That is more like a one-off. Okay. So basically, partnering, this is the key. Whether it's project or strategic, it's all for mutual benefits and mutual objective. Okay. In order to avoid a lot of complication or disharmony, then there will be a dispute mechanism in the agreement. As usual, the basic concept is improvement. And ultimately, trust, cooperation, teamwork is needed. So what is looking at is the objective. Everybody, the designer, the contractor, the owner is focused on the project objective, how to get it done in the most timely manner, the most efficient manner, and so on. So these are the characteristics of project partnering. So more often than not, apart from this fundamental trust and mutual understanding, there will be relationship building, dispute resolution mechanism to be in place. There will be economic incentive, or incentive need to be to reward if really there is huge gain in the system. More often than not, in partnering, there is always a facilitator to assist in the arrangement between the various parties. So to achieve trust and mutual understanding, you have to be openness and transparency. How to get it done? There will be plenty of meetings to build up the trust. And importantly, how to select the partners involved. So these are the approach in getting the partnering done. That is strategically, where there is a continuous project, or one-off, that is under the project partnering. And last part of the non-traditional type 2, we have your alliancing and the early contractor involvement. So alliancing, there are a few categories also. We have the project. So these are the slight variations. We have the project alliancing. Then you have the design alliancing. And then you have the program and service alliancing. So there are three types. Under the alliancing, there are three types. So under partnering, we have two types. One is project and strategic. Under alliancing, we have three types. So the first type is project alliancing. So under the project alliancing, the project owner will advertise for relevant parties to form the alliance. So you need to look into how this owner, designer, and the builder, how are they linked together in a proper manner. So the keyword here is consortium of parties that will form the alliance. Okay. So here the consortium of parties. So the term here is consortium. It's a consortium of parties. So more often than not, you find that there is the term that we use in other aspects. You won't come across the word consortium. So this is project alliancing that you use the term consortium. So that means it's a group of so-called professional parties or those parties that can contribute to the project objective. So under this, the consortium parties, step number one, they have their commercial agreement set up. So under this, step number one is set up the commercial agreement. And what are the resources that each parties will contribute? And then after that, how are they going to be getting back the money by the project owner from the project owner? So that is important. Okay. So first of all, the consortium need to set up the agreement on how much to spend and how much at the end of the day, or how are they going to be reimbursed or paid. So under this arrangement, you'll find that there is a concept. If the project is going to be having good profit, then there will be a gain sharing arrangement. When there is good profit, that means gain means profit. There will be a gain sharing arrangement. If that project is running at the loss, you have the pain sharing arrangement. That means if there's a loss, so party A, party B, party C, each one have to bear certain part of the loss. There's a formula for this type of arrangement. So this Remember, project alliancing, there is a commercial arrangement. At the end of the day, if there is good gain, then there will be a gain sharing arrangement. If there's a loss, then how to share the loss. It doesn't mean like our traditional system. Contractor, if can do it well, how much they gain is nothing to be shared with the employer or with the consultant. So this is different. So this is the project alliance type of arrangement. There is a pain sharing and the gain sharing approach. So ultimately, it's important is how to compute the cost, and then how to ensure that everybody agree onto the cost in terms of accounting. Because once the costs are agreed and captured properly, then the dispute will be very minimal. If the cost for the project is not captured properly, this project alliancing is going to be very complicated. It will lead to dispute. No more alliancing, no more partnering approach. It will be leading to a dispute. So for this type of system, because of the pain sharing and gain sharing, then the cost must be well captured. If the cost is not well captured, then a lot of complication will come into being. So if there's a profit, how to capture the profit? You need to get the cost. Okay. If you cannot get the cost, then you won't be able to account for the profit properly. So variance from the final agreed project cost is shared between the parties. Say it's the variance. There's a positive variance or negative variance. So, and then how to share among themselves? There is a formula. Okay, based on agreed percentage between the project owner and non-project owner team, NOP, PO and NOP. Okay, PO means project owner and non-project owner is NOP. So how to share the gain and pain? This is how it works. So to me, the very important thing is how to capture all the costs incurred. And then from that on, you are able to determine whether there is a profit or loss. If there is a profit, then gain sharing. If there's a loss, then pain sharing. Among whom? Among the project owner and the non-so-called owner project team, NOP. Okay. So all these are the basic approach under the alliancing concept. So basically it's this. To ensure that all these are captured properly and how are they going to distribute, all these have to be reflected in the agreement. Because if you don't have this final project cost captured properly, I can guarantee you it will lead to big headache. Okay, so once this is captured properly, then how to dispute the gain share or pain share can be computed easily. Okay, so this is important. So basically, the whole concept is almost similar to the partnering, where all the parties agree to work together and then making decision and undertaking the work in a transparent and accountable manner. So this is more like an open book system. And also on top of that, no litigation clause apart from criminal or malicious type of activities. Okay. On top of that, under the alliance approach, you need to have a named individual. The consortium will have name individual from each organization, so that how long they're going to park there is very critical for this system to work. So the name individual from each organization have to be there for the duration of project, and then how they contribute is depending on how knowledgeable and how skillful they can move the whole project forward. Sometimes they need an independent auditor. Here, probity consultants is a neutral, independent auditor. Okay, because in order to ensure how to distribute the gain and the pain under this arrangement is best handled by a independent consultant, so that they can evaluate the gain share or pain share among the various parties involved. So this auditor will make sure that all the costs incurred and also the cost and also the his or her fee should be reasonable. So what are the selection criteria? So under this so-called audit consultants, I believe that these audit consultants need to able to form the various teams, the management team and the leadership team. And in short, we call it the AMT and then the ALT. So ultimately, is to capture all the direct costs. So what contribute to the direct costs? All these need to be defined properly before the whole project alliance is in place. So these are the key important points. So more like an open book system, and what can contribute to the cost must be well defined. So if not well defined, then it will be lead to a lot of argument. So this is how the project alliance come into being. As usual, in order for it to be successful, you have to be vetted carefully. The process has to undergo a very rigorous and extensive interview of the parties involved in the consortium. If not, it's not going to be workable. The next type is going to be your design alliance. So this is only part of it. This project alliance is a full team. From design, construct, the owners and everything under the full team. They form a consortium to get the items into the completion. But this one is more towards only the initial category, the design aspect. Okay, so this is done in a very early stage. So design alliance can be formed as a project front-end process as a very initial stage. So once this is done already, then the owner may pass this design to the other party to get it implemented as a team. So this is the importance of the design alliance. It's more towards the initial part. So it's used where the skill required to make judgment. That means the owner is not knowledgeable in this particular type of project. So you need a designer in the initial phase. So there's some other third parties to come in to help get this so-called initial design done, where even the project owner or non-project owner, or sometimes the consultant itself, they don't have this skill. So under this design alliance concept, the project owner to get this one developed. Then after the development, it passed through the so-called project consortium to get it improved and get it implemented. So if you make use of external designer, that is where the consortium don't have such knowledge. Okay, so that is the DA. And the third type is the program and service alliance. So this is required under this category, where alliance occur across project, time, and or space. So you can see here the program and service alliance. It is more towards maintenance aspect. See, under the program and service alliance, it's more towards the maintenance aspect. Okay, because you can see under your partnering is to get the project implemented. Under the project alliance, also get the project implemented. And then you have your design alliance, you get external design to help the project implemented, because the parties involved in the consortium lack that type of knowledge. And then the third category, the alliance, is not on project implementation, it's more towards the maintenance of the existing facilities. So this program and service alliance is usually applicable for an organization that is maybe the government of the day, who operate facilities, and now they don't want to do it. So they ask an independent group that provide the program and service alliance to help out. Okay, for example, there are certain buildings, road, railways, water distribution system, hospital, and even what should I say, prison. They outsource for the external parties to help maintain and operate the facilities. So the organization loses ownership and control over such facilities. So you can see here under Program and Service Alliance, especially government, they don't have the resources to maintain further. They have the initial, they got the fund to build it already, like hospitals, like prison, like schools, rail track, for example, sometimes water distribution system, or maybe some gas distribution system. They have already built under the nationalized system, but now after that they find that there's no more strength to maintain it and to provide the facilities to the people. So they start thinking of program or service aligned type of approach. So ask other party to help maintain so that the people can get the services or have a better quality services or cheaper quality services. This is the whole concept between Program Service Alliance. So please remember, Program Service Alliance is after the project is already handed over to the client and the client find that they cannot handle it, so find someone to provide. This is more towards for community benefits. So more towards the government of the day to implement such type of arrangement. The project owner form this alliance, service alliance, with that particular group, not only to operate the facilities and also to maintain them properly and provide reasonable quality service for the people. So this is the difference between the various type of procurement approach. This is a fundamental concept on what the various alliances are about. Type 1, Type 2, Type 3. Okay. And lastly, we are going to this early contractor involvement. So this one from the terms you should know already, early contractor involvement. Under the early contractor involvement, traditional system is not possible. Okay. So you know why that is not possible for traditional procurement? Because in traditional procurement, it is fully designed by the consultants. Once the contractor is involved, early contractor involvement, that means it's already shown to the other party, external parties, that this project already given to this particular contractor already, the impression. Okay? So this non-traditional approach, early contractor involvement, is applicable to a client or the project owner once the contractor's contribution. Okay, you can see other type of procurement, contractor are usually not involved initially. Or if they are involved, they will design and build and then show their approach or whatever things to the client to agree on a figure. But this one, early contractor involvement, is a special approach where the owner wants to tap the contractor's knowledge skill to ensure that the project can be implemented in the most economical manner. So this is the early contractor involvement. This is not possible for traditional procurement due to the basic concept. So the basic concept is this, that contractor shouldn't be involved at all. That is your traditional approach. So early contractor involvement as a process where the designer and contractor work together. See here, contractor and the designer work together, which is not possible in your traditional. So then they come up with the best design. Then there will be a figure for that stage 1 development. The stage 2 will be the implementation of the project. So there are 2 stages involved. Get the contractor in to come up with the design with the consultants involved and then come up with a figure. And after that, with the design already agreed, then the next stage will be the implementation. We call it the stage 2. So this service includes providing an independent estimator. So more often than not, in order to ensure all costs are captured, you can see all these non-traditional one is very important is the capturing of the costs, because ultimately if there is any sharing of the risk and all these things, the actual cost need to be agreed upon on how to compute the actual cost. So another approach is to allocate risk for those parties that can handle it. So this is a proper risk management. It's no point passing all the risk to the contractor or passing all the risk to a third party like the insurance. No point, it's not cost effective. You allocate the risk to the parties that can manage the risk properly. So once you can allocate the risk to the proper person, you should be getting the best competitive type of cost for the project implementation, because you already adjust the risk already. That means the parties that can manage the risk will give you the most competitive already. With that, you will get some figure before implementation. So as usual, the open book nature and close cooperation among the various grouping, so will be important. So these are the basic concept. Whether early contractor involvement or under your so-called alliancing, or this is the capturing of the cost. And how to capture the cost is always the open book system. But in order for the open book system to operate properly, the items of cost incurred need to be defined. How much or what type of expenditure is to be captured as cost, and what expenditure shouldn't be captured as cost. That is important. So you can view early contractor involvement as alliance-oriented arrangement. However, early contractor involvement acknowledge the limitation also the potential for option to change procurement method at the project delivery phase when greater knowledge and better understanding of the project design is achieved. So I believe this is quite straightforward in the sense that once you get the contractor involved, then the design should be superior. Okay, so then you should be able to know the cost more accurately. And then what type of procurement approach you want to adopt to implement is up to the owner already. If they want to form an alliance, then they can proceed accordingly. If they want to form partnering, or they want to form the design and build, then they can move forward by looking into the how the parties are going to be arranged in the contractual manner. Okay, so with that we come and end to this topic 1, section A 1.1. So now we take a 5 minutes break. So now is 1:53. So we will meet together at 1:58. Okay. Five, eight. So we'll meet at 1:58. So in the meantime, for those who missed the QR code attendance, so you can scan. Okay, welcome back everyone. So the attendance here is 182 upon 189. And there are 7 of you missing. Okay, so check through. If you attending but yet your name is still in red, you have to let me know. Okay, Cheng Hui Yin, Chin Carson, then Wong Sin Rui, Wong Jinmen, T. Si Liang, Song Dexon, Sim Ji Yin. So these are the 7 that are still didn't check in. So for those who want to contact them, please let them know they are absent today. Okay. Yep, just to check with you, can you see the screen share? Any problem? Feedback, please. Can see clearly, no problem today. Okay. Okay, we'll continue with the lectures already. So we are going on to 1.2, contractor design work, and then followed by 1.3 and 1.6. So subcontracting and third-party rights are closely linked. Okay. So under the contractor design work, under your PAM, as usual, when you're talking about PAM, you're talking about traditional procurement approach. And when you use your PAM, your JKR, your FIDIC, all standard form under this local environment are under traditional procurement. Under the traditional procurement, strictly speaking, is consultants design fully. But under your PAM, it is a hybrid because certain things under your PAM which allow the contractor to carry out the design. So that's why we look into the contractor design work under the PAM contract. Similarly, if you use your FIDIC, there are also allocation of a contractor design portion. Even your JKR, I believe there is some section on the contractor design portion. So if the contractor need to do the design, so what would be their responsibility? Okay, that is important. So how can contractor contribute to the design? It is very important. If the contractor proposes alternative design, that means there is an initial design by the consultant. If the contractor proposes any alternative design, it means contractor take the risk and responsibility of the alternative design. And then the contractor must ensure whatever design alternative that they propose, it must comply with the specification, workmanship, and also fit for purpose. Now, this is a very important principle. The works must be fit for its purpose and also must comply with the specification, and also the material and workmanship and everything have to be of what is required under the specification. And on top of that, when the contractor take over the design by proposing alternative design, there's a possibility of the copyright issue. So what happens to the copyright? So the copyright, as usual, if you are the designer, you take over the copyright. But employer got the right to use the design. This is important point. Employer got to use, although you are the owner, proprietary owner or whatever, but you need to allow the employer to use the design. And also for this type of arrangement, for the maintenance, repair, and also extension in the future, because they need your design. If it is a heaven, they need that basic data so that they, in future, there's any extension or whatever maintenance, they can refer back. As usual, the alternative design that is accepted by the architect under your PEM, once accepted by the architect, it shall not relieve the contractors of the obligation. What they try to say here is this: even if the design, alternate design, is approved by the architect, contractor is still responsible. It doesn't mean that, oh, you already approved it, so the consultants take over the responsibility. No. Once you take over the alternate design, contractor bear the risk of the alternative design. So these are the risks that the contractor have to take over: suitability, adequacy, integrity, durability of the design, and particularly of the design. So the contractor takes over. Not only the initial design, any amendments to the design, contractor is responsible. Okay, that is the contractor design responsibility. As usual, what are the things need to be submitted before commencement of the so-called whatever design taken over by the contractor, or to follow the consultant's design? So if the contract stated that the whole or any part of the permanent work shall be designed by the contractor, the contractor shall not proceed with the work unless all these things are furnished to the architect. It means that if you take over some of the design, it's a repeating of the above information. You need to submit your drawings to the architect, specification, calculations, whatever, to demonstrate the suitability, adequacy, integrity, durability, and practicality of the design. So again, repeat here. Acceptance by the architect doesn't mean the responsibility passed to the architect. It's still the contractor. So this is before commencement. This is the contractor's responsibility. Then what happens to the after the completion? That means after the certificate of practical completion issue. CPC means certificate of practical completion issue. Certificate of practical completion. So the short form is CPC. Okay. Upon the date of practical completion, contractor shall submit not only your drawings or this, you need to submit your maintenance, your manuals, your drawings to the consultants, and then the consultant will pass it to the employer, because the employer need all this information for their future maintenance. Okay. So that is after completion, after the civil completion, contractor who take over the design of the certain areas, you need to pass all this information to the employer so that the employer can maintain the completed project. Another area to look into, what happens there is any comment and you need to modify. Okay. So if any modification, the architect will inform the contractor to amend it. If they found out there are any deficiencies or non-compliance of whatever kind, and then the contractor need to amend what the consultants commented, and all the redesign or variation required as a result of the instruction and their cost shall be entirely the responsibility of the contractor. So please understand this concept. If the contractor takes over the design, the contractor is responsible for the design, even approved by the architect. Point number one. Point number two, if the architect found that the contractor design is not perfect, then the contractor have to amend the design. And any cost, additional costs incurred in carrying out the amended design, contractor has to absorb the cost. Okay, whereas it's different from your traditional approach. If traditional approach, if the consultants prepare the design and there is any error in the design by the consultants, the consultant will issue an amended design. And the contractor will carry out the amended design as a variation. If there's an increased cost, it can be claimed as positive variation order to the work. But in this case, if the contractor were to do the design and then there is amendment or modification, any cost incurred is contractor's responsibility. I hope we are clear. Next, we go on to 1.3, subcontracting. So generally, you find that in subcontracting, there are two categories. You have your domestic subcontractor and nominated subcontractor. So domestic, it means the subcontractor engaged by the main contractor directly. Don't have to get any permission from the employer. The second one is NSC, nominated subcontractor. Nominated subcontractors are specialist contractor identified by the employer or the architect and then pass it to the main contractor to form the contractual arrangement between the NSCs and the main contractor. So please differentiate between these two. So domestic subcontractor, the employer is by the main contractor directly. Okay, so main contractor engage them directly. So all subcontractors appointed by the main contractor. So generally, the subcontractors must be registered with the CIDB or sometimes a PKK and so on. So more often than not, except where expressly provided by the contract, the contractor shall not engage or permit the engagement of any subcontractors without the written consent of the architect or the contract administrator, which consent shall not be unreasonably withheld. So it means that before the main contractor want to engage any DSC, generally you try to get the permission from the architect. Usually the architect will allow because they not unreasonably withheld. So what I try to say is the architect or the employer will not be so unreasonable to block you from engaging your domestic subcontractor. Okay. Except where otherwise provided, the contractor shall not wholly. This is important. More often than not, the contractor is allowed to do some subcontracting of the work because you cannot handle all of them. But then, if the main contractor were to wholly, that means the whole of the work they're going to subcontract it out. In our local term, we call this Alibaba arrangement. Okay, this Alibaba arrangement means that the main contractor get the project and then sub it out fully to another contractor to carry out the work, and the main contractor gets some fee out of this arrangement. So the main contractor who get the job don't have to do any work and then collecting every monthly a certain fee. This is called Alibaba arrangement. This is not allowed under your PAM. Okay, so this I need to change on 8. Okay, so where the contractor subcontract labor only, definitely no problem. Subcontracting of labor, usually you don't even have to ask permission from the consultants or the employer. Usually this will be allowed because this one does not constitute subcontract under the meaning of PAM 17.3. Okay. So this is subcontracting under the domestic type. Then we have another category, the nominated type. So it's recommended by the employer to the contractor or by the architect to the contractor. So usually in the project where you have prime cost or provisional sum, so where the contract signed between the employer and the main contractor, there is one section you call it the prime cost, and sometimes there is a provisional sum allocated in the so-called contract document. And then with this type of amount allocated there, sorry, there's a possibility that the employer will come into the picture to nominate the subcontractor to be employed by the main contractor. So this is called nominated subcontractor employed by the main contractor. This happens when you have your prime cost sum or PC sum or provisional sum, or call it the PS sum. Okay. So next is what happened if the nominated subcontractor were to propose alternative design. Because I mentioned to you, NSCs are specialists. So they're very good in their work. There's always possibility they want to improve the design, then we'll propose alternative design. So the similar principle applies. Once the main contractor propose alternate design, main contractor responsible. So now normally subcontractor propose alternate design, then the nominated subcontractor will be responsible. Sorry here. There's another one important area under the nomination of subcontractors. Whether there is objection or not. The architect or the employer shall not nominate if there is objection from the contractor. On what ground that the contractor can object? Usually these are the grounds. Number one, financially not strong. And number two, technically the subcontractor is weak. And number three, from previous dealing. So these are the three good grounds usually the main contractor can object. Apart from these three grounds, you have no choice. So how to do it? If already nominated, so the main contractor got 14 days to do the objection. If failed to object within 14 days, it means you are going to be responsible. So if there is a valid objection, architect will not nominate that particular subcontractor. And then the architect need to get another new one. Once the nominated subcontractor is agreed, then the main contractor will be fully responsible. So this is something I think very straightforward already. Okay, you got objection and the objection is valid, then this NSCs will be rejected. Then the employer or the architect will have to engage another new one until accepted already. Then the contractor will have a contract with the nominated subcontractor. At the end of the day, the responsibility belongs to the main contractor already. So the nominated subcontractor will have to comply with all the design by the consultants, and any shortfall by these NSAs is the main contractor responsibility. Okay. Neither the existence nor the exercise of foregoing provisions nor anything else contained in the contract shall create a privity of contract between the employer and the nominated subcontractor. So this is a very important reminder. Although the employer or the architect nominate the subcontractors to be working with the main contractor, there is no contract relationship between the employer with the nominated subcontractor, or there is no contract relationship between the architect and the nominated subcontractor. It is the main contractor and the nominated subcontractor that have the contractual relationship. So this is what it means here. So neither shall create a privity of contract. That means no privity of contract created. Then the next thing is how NSCs got paid. More often than not, the NSCs will be paid directly by the main contractor. Okay, so this is how the NSCs will be paid. So this is how the NSCs will be paid. Okay. I'll change it to 2018. No? Yeah. They will be paid, NSC is paid. No? It will be paid within 7 days after the main contractor received the money. Are you clear? So they will, NSCs will be paid after 7 days the main contractor received the money from the employer. If the main contractor received the money, let's say is after the certificate is after the 40 days, then the NSCs will receive it 40 plus 7 days later. This is what it try to mean. Now, what happened if the main contractor did not pay? If the main contractor did not pay, then there's a possibility the architect will direct the main contractor to pay the nominated subcontractor. The architect shall direct the contractor normally as calculated from the valuation, and then they will inform the contractor this is the amount to be released to the subcontractor. So after that, the subcontractor will receive the amount after the 7 days. Okay. And then now what happened? The NSCs is not paid timely. So if the NSCs is not paid timely, there is an option by the architect. The architect will ask the contractor to show proof that the contractor have paid the nominated subcontractor within 14 days. Okay. So this is what the architect will ask the contractor to do. At any time before the issuing of the final certificate or penultimate certificate, ask the contractor to provide reasons or proof that all the NSAs have been paid. Okay. So the main contractor have to do it within 14 days. So if the main contractor did not pay, then the architect can force the employer to pay directly. So this is what may happen. Okay. So if the NSAs is not paid timely, the architect will ask the contractor, have you paid them or not? Giving the contractor 14 days to respond. Okay. So if the main contractor respond in the very negative manner, then there is a possibility that the architect can ask the employer to pay directly to the NSCs. And then this amount of money paid will be deducted from the main contractor in the subsequent certificate and so on. I hope we are clear. NSCs usually get paid by the main contractor directly. If the main contractor didn't pay them after they receive the money, then the NSCs can complain to the architect. And the architect will ask the main contractor, giving the contractor 14 days to show proof. If the main contractor cannot show proof, then the architect may, I will use the word may, request the employer to pay the nominated subcontractor directly by issuing a new certificate to the NSCs. So then this amount will be deducted from the main contractor. So the architecture may, the word is may, okay, may issue the certificate irrespective whether or not interim certificate under is due for issuing. So that means that any time the architect can issue another certificate to see how much the NSC is eligible. Okay. So this is payment. Now this part is on payment. Payment by the contractor, and if contractor fail, then there is a possibility the architect can do a direct payment, asking the employer to pay directly. Okay. So next part will be on the completion of the project. And this one is under the completion of the project. Of NSC's project or works. Completion of the NSC's work. So if NSC's work already complete earlier, then there's a possibility that the NSC's may want to clear out from the project site. But this one is all depending on the architect. If the architect is willing to do this, then the architect will prepare a special certificate to the NSCs. If the architect wish to make final payment to any nominated subcontractors, then the architect must prepare a penultimate certificate to the NSCs. So if the NSC's project is completed earlier than the main contract. So this is how is this done. Is by making use of a penultimate payment certificate to the NSCs. If the NSCs has indemnified the contractor against all liability, in order for the architect to issue this special penultimate certificate, the NSCs must be fair to the main contractor. To indemnify the main contractor before the architect can issue this penultimate certificate. Once the NSC is indemnified already, then there's a possibility that they will issue this certificate, and then the NSCs will get their money. So this is how we call it early release of the final account money to the NSCs by making use of the penultimate certificate process, which is quite rare. Okay, in principle, this is quite rare. This is in theory under the PAM contract. There is such a mechanism for NSCs to clear away from the site, but on one condition, they must indemnify. That means they must protect the main contractor if there's any problem with their work. How to do it? Usually by coming up with the so-called certain type of bond or cash deposit. Okay. Upon such final payment, then the NSCs already taken out their retention sum. So the main contractor retention sum, the limits there will be reduced accordingly. I hope you can follow this part, because the main contract retention sum is including the NSC's contract amount. So the limit of the retention sum is the retention sum of the main contractor's work and the NSC's retention sum. Okay. So now if the NSC's is already liberated, that means they take their retention sum out already by the penultimate certificate issued by the architect. Therefore, it's fair that the limit of retention sum shall be reduced to the amount that the architect released to the NSCs. Okay. Next is determination by the determination of NSCs. That means terminated. Now what happened? Okay. What happened if NSAs is legally terminated? In the event the architect consent to the determination of the employment of the NSAs, then the contractor shall recover whatever additional expenses incur from the NSAs or from the money due to the NSAs or from the performance bond. So what happens if NSA's determination is done properly? Means properly, or what do you say, contractually, see? Okay. So if the determination of NSAs is done properly or contractually correct, then any additional amount incurred, the contractor got this option. You can recover from here. Number one, and number two, and number three. So there are three ways that the main contractor can recover from the NSAs. As a debt or from money that is going to be paid to the NSAs. And number three, from the performance bond. Okay. For the debt means by giving the, this one is by issuing a lawyer letter of demand. Okay. This is called debt. By issuing a lawyer letter of demand. Okay. So we have come an end to the 1.2 and 1.3 and so-called 1.6. Okay. So we take 5 minutes break. Okay. So 240. Continue again. 240. Sorry, 140. So for those who didn't scan, please scan the 7 of your. Two more absent today. Wang Jingmen and Jing Carson. Wang Jingmen and Jing Carson is absent because we have 187 to 189. So can you see the screen properly? Can you see the screen properly? Okay, good. Thanks. Okay, I'll continue. Progress monitoring and quality monitoring. Progress monitoring is 1.4. This is a very critical subject, progress monitoring. So in order to able to understand progress monitoring, first of all, you need to understand the power of the architect to issue instruction. Because only from this instruction, they can warn the contractor whether if we are slow or if any deviation. So this is the power, special power given to the architect to inform the contractor. So the clause involved, if you look at the clause 2.1 of PEM, it will tell you that under this clause 2.1 and 2.2, that main contractor must comply with all instructions issued by the architect with regards to the project, where the architect is expressly, see here is very important, expressly empowered by the condition of the contract to issue the instruction. If the architect cannot identify the clause or the condition to issue the instruction, that instruction is invalid. Okay. So now, how does it work? Under clause 2.2, architect can issue any instruction expressly provided under the contract 2.2. And then the contractor under clause 2.3 can query the architect. Where is your right to issue that instruction? That means the authority for you to issue the instruction. Where did you get it from? So the contractor can make use of the clause 2.3. So this is the gist of this section here. Okay. So under clause 2.2, all instructions shall be in writing. How to issue the instruction? It must be in writing. And the name of the instruction is called architect instruction. So please, when you start working, once you use PEM, the instruction must be architect instruction or confirmation of architect instruction. Type 1 is architect instruction. Type 2 is confirmation architect instruction. Okay. So these are the two types of instruction that the contractor need to follow. So type 1 is architect instruction, is the direct instruction from the architect. The second type is the architect give a oral or verbal instruction, and then the architect confirm that oral or verbal instruction. You call it CAI, or confirmation of architect instruction. Please, in future, when you start working, don't ever follow engineer's instruction or whatever parties at the project site if your PEM contract is used. A frequent mistake in the industry is for the parties involved in running the project accepting engineer's instruction. In PEM, any engineers, whether they are structural engineer, mechanical engineer, electrical engineer, they can issue instruction, but it must issue to the name architect, and the name architect will attach the architect's instruction with the engineer's instruction together and send it to the contractor. Contractor receiving the engineer's instruction directly is an invalid instruction. Please be careful. It must be attached with the architect's instruction, or the architect will confirm the engineer instruction under the confirmation of architect instruction. I hope you are clear on this. When PEM is used, only architect instruction or confirmation of architect instruction can be used to finalize your account or whatever things. Any other instruction is illegal or invalid. So this is what it under this area of instruction, the architect having that power. And that power can be queried by the contractor. If the contractor receives an instruction from the architect in writing, then the contractor may want to check whether the architect got that power or not. If the architect cannot find the proper clause under the contract, that means the architect instruction is invalid. Then the contractor no need to comply. I hope we are clear. So architect can issue instruction under clause 2.2, either as AI or CAI. Then if the contractor receives the certain instruction, it look very funny. There's a possibility that is outside the architect's power. Then the contractor will ask under clause 2.3, Mr. or Miss Architect, can you tell me under which clause under the PEM you are given the power to issue instruction? If the architect cannot show any of the clause to support, then the instruction is invalid and contractor don't have to comply. So if the contractor didn't query the architect, whatever instruction received and then you follow, then it means that the instruction given is valid. Okay, so repeat, if the contractor were to follow the instruction by the architect without querying, then the contractor cannot later argue that this is an invalid instruction. Sorry, cannot. It means that the instruction is issued validly to the main contractor. Please remember that. And then the next thing is clause 2.4, time to comply. So generally, the instruction given by the architect, if it is valid, main contractor must comply within 7 days from the receipt of AI, not less than 7 days. It means within 7 days. Okay. The contractor need to comply. If the contractor didn't comply, then this will be the consequence. If the contractor did not comply, does not comply, then the architect or the employer, usually the architect or the employer, okay? Because architect is representing the employer, can use the contract clause to get third party to carry out that particular work. So the employer or the architect can engage a third party to pay other person to execute that instruction, and that all the costs incur, additional costs incur, shall be deducted from the contractor. How to deduct it? By using the set off by the employer under clause 30.4. So you look at your PAM clause 30.4. We call it this as a set off clause. It means that the employer, before paying the main contractor the amount of the work done, will less out this amount as set off from the payment due to the main contractor. Okay. Next, we go on to the importance of work program. So, under the contract, once the contractor is successful, given a letter of acceptance or letter of award, if the contractor received the letter acceptance or letter of award, the contractor must provide a working program to the architect. How many sets? 6 sets of the working program must be produced and pass it to the architect. This is given under clause 3.5. So the important thing is under clause 3.5, contractor must submit within 21 days after receiving the letter of acceptance or letter of award. And please remember another important point. Working program is not a contract document. So I will explain this. What does it mean? It's not a contract document. It's very strange. It is required under the contract for the contractor to submit a working program. But then under clause 3.6 after your PEP, it says very clearly, this working program is not part of a contract document. So what does it mean here? It means that the working program is only a document to facilitate administration of the project and not part of the contract document. If it is part of the contract document, it is converted from working program to contract program. So the working program and contract program have totally different meaning. That one we will go through as we proceed to the next so-called stage. Okay. So please understand this. Working program is not part of the contract document. That is very important principle here because there is a lot of significance. Generally, the working program can be in a bar chart, can be a network, can be whatever complicated or simplified format, or depending on the contract document. But then another important thing, whatever submitted is usually have to be approved by the architect. That is under the clause 3.7 of PAM 2018. So what is the significance of approval by the architect? So this is a significant. If approved by the architect, the working program becomes something binding the architect, so that the architect cannot simply deny that these are the so-called method of carrying out the work later. And then it is very useful for the contractor to make use of this approved working program as evidence or supporting document when you want to make a claim for extension of time or additional money involved. Clear? So This is what I'm trying to say is, what is the consequence or implication when architect approve the working program? So this is the implication. If the architect approve it, it is going to be binding on the architects to supply all the relevant information to the contractor. And the working program will be the baseline for information flow or for future extension of time support or for future additional money claim support. So the program can be network program will be better to support your time claim and money claim. If it's a Gantt chart, it is not so useful. So a network program is of greater value compared to other type of program because it enable you to show which critical activities are affected. If the critical activities are affected, then it will give you a very good ground for extension of time support. Okay. It is even more useful when used in conjunction with the bar chart. So this one, explanation below. I will see you Tuesday, coming Tuesday. I will continue from here. So this one, stop on. So I stop it here. We'll continue from here on Tuesday. So before that, I need to download. No? Yeah. Oh, sorry. And download your attendance. Just to cross-check. Huh? Wait now. So let me refresh. So it's still two of you absent. Huh? Okay. So 187 versus 189. But let me check, cross-check back here. Oh, something very wrong. This one is not powerful enough to capture all. Only 130. See here, something wrong. I will need to check with okay. Yep, I have already uploaded. I've already uploaded the tutorial questions 1. Okay, and also additional lecture notes. Yeah. Anything you'd like to ask? No, no. So lecture 1, no, sorry, tutorial 1. Tutorial 1, we are going to start already. Okay, so follow the schedule accordingly. So the group 1 is week 2. So all those at week 2, you better look at your timetable on week 2 and the time allocated for which group we will follow accordingly. Okay, so please do into the channel that allocated to you. So group 1 is channel 1, group 2 channel 2, and so on. Okay, so on that time I will using the Microsoft team, and then we will discuss. So please remember, I give you a lot of information under the questions there, which I don't think we can get it done in 2 hours. Hopefully it can be done. If cannot, don't worry. I will give you the complete so-called proposed answers for your reader. But in the meantime, if you all want to come up with your own proposed answers for me to check, no problem. Please, you're always welcome. But email to me, okay? So with that, I will stop the recording.